welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going over all of the movies I watched in the month of December. Now this video is going to be in a playlist with the other 11 installments in this series, so if you want to go back and look at some of those you can as well, but at this point we're 12 videos in, so we're just going to jump straight into what we're doing here, which is rating them, and then at the end we'll go through and we'll rank them. Interesting here. So this is I saved December. The first four movies here are actually holdovers from Thanksgiving at my sister and her family's house. So we watched four movies that were kind of on in the background while food was being made and all that stuff, and I was kind of just glued watching the TV. But the four movies are Freebirds, Inglourious Bastards, Shrek, and Shrek 2. And I will let you guess at what point we put the little cut or my nephew down for a nap. So Freebirds, whatever, two and a half. Inglourious Bastards, this is the second time I've seen this. It bumped it up to a 4.5. I enjoyed it a whole lot more this time. And then both Shrek and Shrek 2 are 4.5s as well. So move those up there. And then we've got Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Almost had to get a little close to see. Didn't recognize this poster that I saved. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This is the first time that I've seen this movie, and it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I guess I don't know what I was really expecting. I just didn't think it was going to be for me, but I had a fun time. I'm putting it up at a 4. And then we have Moana, and then Moana 2 back to back. Moana, I just am not like as big into Moana as I think a lot of people were. The first one, it's like a 3.5. Let's go 3.5 on the original, and then Moana 2. I really didn't enjoy this a whole like it's been, I guess, about a month, and I don't remember any of the songs. I barely remember a lot of the plot. Like it felt like you can tell this was originally a TV show that then got turned into a movie. It was just kind of a mess for me. I just wasn't a big fan. And then we have Welcome to Marwen. This is a weird movie in there. I remember seeing it in theaters with my friends a couple years ago, and I remember watching it and thinking that it was good. I remember like really liking it, and then but I just haven't thought about it really since then. And I logged it on Letterboxd. I gave it a 3. But I feel like I remember it being better than a 3, and then I watched it again, and no, it's about a 3. We're gonna leave it right there. And then we have September 5, which technically, I think technically it's out in like New York and LA and like maybe some other big cities, but I don't think it has like a big worldwide release for a couple more weeks. But I saw it at one of the advanced secret cinema screenings that I've been going to. There's parts of this movie that are so good, and then there's parts where it is just a little boring, and it's because I mean you're following it's a movie about reporters, like they're in a kind of the war room, like they're in just broadcasting terrifying, something terrifying that's happening. And so it's like there's moments that are so tense and so nerve-wracking, and so there's some scenes that are just phenomenal, but then there's a lot that just kind of is a little slower, or it just has a hard time kind of keeping you interested during some of the slower moments, at least for me. But I thought it was okay. We're gonna go with 3.5, but I think this had the potential of being like right up my alley, like one of my personal, like this could have been so my movie if it was like more complete from start to finish, as intense as some of the couple of those scenes are. But we're gonna go 3.5. Then we have Y2K. I I avoided like all the trailers going into this. The only thing I knew was Rachel Zegler and Jaden Martell, I think is his name, the kid from It. I know he's been in a couple other things, but that's always what I'll know him from. I think that's all I knew, and then I knew it was a comedy about the end of 1999. The Y2K turning of the millennia. I didn't know that it was going to have any sort of horror elements. So I will say that moment was really fun, and then the rest just it just was flat from there on out. But I was just so caught off guard by that one particular moment because I didn't I had no idea it was going to have any sort of like horror, because I thought it was a comedy. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and put that there, and then we have Pinocchio, the 2022. There were so many Pinocchios, all in a row. Like there was like 4 or 5 Pinocchios released in like a 2 year stretch. So I don't remember what year these all came out, but this is the Disney live action remake with Tom Hanks. It's not good. We're putting it at a 1.5. And then we have Maria. This is on Netflix. It's Pablo Larraín's new film with Angelina Jolie, and Pablo Larraín. I would, honestly, I haven't seen Jackie, so I don't want to like say too much about that, but I've heard Jackie is really good. Obviously, I saw Spencer. I loved Spencer, so I went into this kind of thinking I was going to get the same thing. And what you do get is you do get a great acting performance by Angelina Jolie. Like I will say that. The rest of the movie just didn't capture me. It's not as interesting as a story outside of kind of just watching her act. So I'm just going to go with a 2.5 here for Maria. And then on Friday the 13th, I've been doing this for a while. I've been each new Friday the 13th just watch the next installment in the Friday the 13th franchise. This is what's so hard to remember with this franchise. I think part 4 was Friday the 13th, like the final chapter, and then this is Friday the 13th 5. Clearly wasn't the final chapter, and I think that's only like a year or something between those two movies. So it's like to say like the final chapter, and then within a year or two, like you have the next installment was kind of crazy. But we're going 2.5. The Friday the 13th. A lot of these kind of slasher films, the originals are always really good to me, and then each one after that, it's just kind of it just rinse and repeat, and I just kind of start getting bored of the formula. So you have to do something either like insane or just the most memorable kills or something in order to like really hook me. And this just kind of falls in line as just kind of being as forgettable as the rest of or the bunch of the sequels have been so far. And then we have A Christmas Carol. This one, yeah, same thing, probably like a 2.5. It's just it gets an okay middle of the road movie for me. I think I had this logged on Letterboxd when I watched it, and because it seems like maybe this is one of those classic Christmas movies that you just seen as a kid, but none of it seemed familiar. I was completely kind of caught off guard with kind of the creepy. Which, speaking of kind of creepy animation, we're going to get to another film a little bit later that is very in line with that. But yeah, this I wasn't quite like. I definitely didn't recognize it, so I don't think I had seen it before, but we'll go 2.5 there for Christmas Carol. And then we have Carry On, and was a fun time. I'm gonna go with a 3.5. It's kind of the same, almost kind of like the same tier as like September 5 in the sense of they're both these good thrillers that are bottled thrillers as well. Like September 5, obviously we're just kind of in this newsroom. Carry On, we're kind of stuck in this airport, and so you get these thrillers. I think Carry On maybe worked a little bit better for me because I don't want to say it's more lighthearted, but it's not based on at least I don't think it's based on a true story as opposed to September 5, which is 100% like a true story. So I think Carry On kind of gets to do a little bit more fun things as opposed to kind of having to be, like this was a true story that we're telling. So Carry On, it gets to be a little bit more fun at times, and there's less moments that it's just kind of a dull. And so they're kind of similar to me, both really kind of tense thrillers, but I think Carry On just was consistently kind of hitting a little bit more than September 5 was for me. Then we have The Fire Inside, which is another one that I think technically came out on Christmas. I don't know if it's in. No, yeah, I think it's wide enough that but yeah, it came out on Christmas. This is another one I got to see a little bit early for the Secret Cinema. This is the same thing. We're going with a 3.5. It's one of those that the first half of the movie. And so again, with the fun thing with the Secret Cinema, I knew about this movie, and I knew about the movie when it was called Flint Strong. Um, and so I kind of knew the movie. I knew it was this boxing movie, so I thought it was going to be this kind of like the entire time this drama. Like I thought it was going to be this kind of. It was supposed to be more like a bio or like an Oscar bait type thing. But then I was watching it, and it's the first half is very kind of like I don't want to say it's not Disney movie, but like feel good movie, rags to riches, like that kind of thing or whatever. And then when she wins gold at the Olympics, and then it kind of goes like hard cut to black. And I genuinely had a moment there where I thought, is the movie just ending here? Because I didn't know the runtime going into it. I hadn't really heard any updates about this since it was called Flint Strong. So I'm like, I didn't know what it was. And then you get kind of like a third act. You get it's almost like half the movie. It's probably more than just a third act, but you get a whole another section of the movie, and all of a sudden that's where it started really picking up for me. Where I was like, okay, this is good. I'm enjoying this. And then it gets to the end, and I believe it was Barry Jenkins, written by Barry Jenkins, is like the first title card that pops up. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, that explains it. That's where we're getting to this the second half, why this felt so good. I was like, this feels like Barry Jenkins. So yeah, great acting, great kind of third act that kind of saves the just kind of feel good sports movie of the first half for me. So it's gonna go right there at about a 3.5. Then we have Queer, which I think I owe this a second watch. I'm gonna go with a 3.5. I went into this Luca Guadagnino new film with Daniel Craig. I went into this like hearing people buzzing about it and a lot of people loving it. So I was so ready for this to just be like an amazing movie, and it's fine. There's good moments, there's good scenes, good acting, like all of that. It's a little weird, which is fine with me as well. Like it's not like it's weird with these kind of experimental or kind of these flashback or not flashback, but kind of like visions that he's having. Some of them, a little sometimes drug induced, and so it's a little out there. And so I don't want to say it's like that. Some people like don't like the film because of that. It's not like why I don't like it. I just don't know if I completely understood everything or if it all kind of came together. I still enjoyed the majority of the movie, so that's why we're going to leave it at a 3.5. But I think that is one that I do owe another rewatch where I can kind of like sit down and I don't want to say be more focused because I was focused in the theater watching this, but I think just with an additional rewatch, the things that maybe I missed the first time make a little bit more sense on a second watch. So I will see that again in the future, but for now we're leaving it at a 3.5. And then we have Suspiria, and this is interesting. So I saw this after Queer because I wanted to see the next Luca Guadagnino film that I hadn't seen, and was a really interesting experience for me because I knew the name Suspiria, I knew the film, and then there's another movie. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on Climax. There's a movie called Climax that I think maybe these were around the same time. I never saw Climax either, but I did see that trailer a bunch. And somehow in my head over these years, I have forgotten Climax. I forgot that was a movie. I remembered the trailer for it and have just put that onto Suspiria. So I was watching this expecting Climax, that movie, and so it took me a little bit to kind of like readjust to being like, okay, this is just a different. I don't know what Suspiria is. I don't. Obviously I know it's like a remake, and so I know it's a story that a lot of people know. I did not know what I was really getting into as I was watching Suspiria. This is another one that I'm sure this is maybe just a thing with Luca Guadagnino. If some of his stories, like I guess Bones and All, are Challengers and Call Me by Your Name. There's a good chunk of his movies that are maybe a little bit more straightforward. The ones that are a little more experimental, I think you just owe multiple watches probably to really fall in love with them or to really kind of get what exactly he's going for. So I'm going to go with a 3 here for Suspiria. And then we have Allied. This is another one, another kind of thriller that has some scenes that just work so well. I mean, this is kind of crazy. These three all in a row, kind of right here. September 5, Carry On and Allied are all like, again, scenes that are so well done in these thrillers, and then just too much. I guess this one's closer to September 5 of too many other scenes in the middle where it's just dragging or it's not captivating you. It's kind of taking its time. This one, it kind of makes a little more sense because it's doing that to build this relationship, but I feel like the movie wasn't long enough to really fully buy their relationship, and so it felt like we just spent a lot of time buying something that you were just going to have to just get there anyway, make the leap without really having it all fleshed out. So it just didn't quite all the way work for me, but there was just still some scenes in this that were so good, so that's why I enjoyed it more than I mean, without a couple of those scenes, this would be like a 2.5, 3, but there's just a couple scenes that are so good, and both Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard are phenomenal in this. And then we rewatched the Sonic franchise leading into Sonic 3. I was pretty harsh on the original Sonic when it first came out. I think I gave it like a 2, 2.5. And then this is the first time I've seen this since 2020 probably, or whatever, 2021. I can't remember what year this came out, but I think this was the first time I'd seen it since then. I liked it a little bit more this time. I'm gonna go with a 3. And then Sonic 2, rewatched it. I still didn't really like Sonic 2, but we're gonna go with 2.5. This feels like a definite step down. And then Sonic 3, this feels like a definite step up from the original for me. So that's how we're gonna put them. We're gonna put them all kind of in neighboring tiers, with 3 being the best, then 1, then 2. And then I rewatched The Lion King before going and seeing Mufasa. And this is one where this is a good example of a movie for me that I think because this was also 2019, right? This was my first year where I was getting really back into like, or really getting into going to a bunch of movies. And so I was going to see this, and I was a big fan of the original Lion King, obviously. And so I went and saw the Lion King remake, and I saw it at my theater. Again, I'm kind of newer to the theaters, or newer to like going to the movies, and so I had never seen a movie on an IMAX screen before. And so I went to this. I happened to pick an IMAX showing, and I think it was a pretty new in my theater, that theater where they got an IMAX screen. And so I remember just walking in, seeing the size of the theater, and just being blown away by like the theatrical experience of this the first time. And so I think I remember leaving and rating the Lion King remake like a 4 star on Letterboxd, and then seeing everyone else giving it like a 1 star, and I was sitting there thinking like, oh, what did I see wrong? And then I watched it again a couple months later, and I realized this is one of those where it's like kind of falling prisoner of the moment of like that experience was so cool being in an IMAX theater for the first time, big surround sound, like it was just such a great experience, and just pretty much just being like I get to watch The Lion King again, in theaters, and so it was a really cool experience. And so this is one of those where trying to not get too caught up in the idea of like the moment of the theatrical experience like boosting the movie more than it should. But yeah, so I watched it a couple months later, and I'm gonna drop it down to a 3. I think I'm still way higher on the Lion King live action remake than a lot of other people are, but I definitely have cooled off from the very first time I saw it. And then we have Mufasa, and this is a definite kind of step down. Again, not by too much though for me. I think I'm giving it like a 2.5. There, the kind of the way the story is told, of it being Rafiki telling a story, um, is an interesting idea. But then I just was kind of a little annoyed every time we kept cutting back for Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner to make some jokes as Timon and Pumbaa. I kind of just wanted to stick in the story where we were at, and then we can finish with them again. But clearly, it's one of those things in order to get Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen to come back. Obviously, got to give him a little bit more lines than like Beyonce and Donald Glover had. They're kind of at the beginning or right at the end. So I get it, but it kind of kept breaking up the story for me. I just wasn't really getting into it until kind of the very end, when it does just become, once they get to Pride Rock, and it's the origin of like what happened right immediately right before the beginning. I guess not immediately right before the Lion King, but in the little bit right a couple years before the events of the Lion King, then it kind of got interesting again. But I just wasn't really too captured by anything leading up to that point. So we're just going to go with a 2.5 there. And then we have the Polar Express, talking about another, or when I was talking about there was another animated movie with weird animation coming up. This is another one I had rated on Letterboxd. I don't like. When I was watching it, I was thinking maybe I haven't seen this. Kind of coming to that realization. Um, let's go with a 3 for the Polar Express. I wasn't the biggest fan. I do think this is one of those that, depending on when you saw this, if you first saw this as a child, if it just kind of became one of your childhood favorites, I could see this being a movie that you like view in such higher regard. I also can see why people like hate it if you have it down here as well. But for me, I was able to enjoy it for the most part, but I don't have really that much of an emotional attachment to, so we're just gonna go with a 3 star there. And then we have Baby Girl. This is another one that I think I owe another rewatch to, probably. I'm just realizing there's a lot kind of in the middle here this month. We're going to go with a 3 for Baby Girl, but I think. No. No, we're going to go with a 3.5. We're going to go 3.5 for Baby Girl, because I think the acting is so good in it, and so I don't know if the story didn't quite like work all the way for me. If I just wasn't as invested in the journey necessarily, but I was invested in all of the performances. Mainly, I mean, Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson for sure, but then Antonio Banderas. He has one scene in particular where he's phenomenal. But I just think that the acting was so good, and also. While we're talking about the acting, I just loved that the entire movie I was trying to figure out who her assistant was, because she seemed so familiar, and then finally seeing her name in the credits, it was Sophie Wilde. Is that her name from? I'm drawing blank on every Talk to Me from last year. So that seeing her and making that connection of finally figuring out who that was, because it was driving me nuts the entire movie. But the three of them, and I guess Sophie Wilde as well, they're all great acting. So I think that's going to bump it up from like a 3 story that I don't really care about, to a 3.5 that it's like wasn't quite perfect, didn't all the way work for me, but at least the acting was so good. And then we have Night Bitch, and I'm going to put Night Bitch down at, oh, let's go with a 2.5. I think it's better than a two, but I will say, Night Bitch, if you're not familiar with what it is, it's the Amy Adams movie where she turns into a dog. I will say, it's funny that those two are right next to each other. I think there's more scenes in Baby Girl of Nicole Kidman acting like an animal than there were of Amy Adams in Night Bitch acting like a dog. So, a little weird observation I had between those two. Gonna move down next is Walk the Line. So I saw this before, A Complete Unknown. Going back and actually, if we're being honest, let's just go ahead and flip them. I did see a complete unknown first. So complete unknown, we're going up with a 4 star. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not even that big of a. I shouldn't say I'm not that big of a Bob Dylan fan. Like, I'm not a Bob Dylan fan at all. Like, before this movie, I never listened to his music. I have started going back, and there's a couple tracks that, and it's the ones that are kind of prominently featured in the movie. There's a couple that I can get into this a little bit, but I just thought that the music was great. The story was, it's a fun. I think what works in this type of biopic is that it's not from birth to death. We're not seeing everything. We're kind of just seeing a moment of his life, and kind of a big moment in terms of like the times of Bob Dylan going electric. I think it's an interesting kind of just time period of his life to kind of put in the story, and so I think it worked well for me. So I'm going with a 4, and then I went back and watched Walk the Line. I don't know why I had those flipped, but I watched Walk the Line after, and it was just kind of shocking to me because, again, it's James Mangold, so it's the same director, and it's a music biopic. It kind of just shocked me how much of an overlap there was, in terms of just kind of the story kind of being a lot of the notes, especially early, kind of feeling similar. Of the musician that's kind of in this love triangle, has is interested in this other singer, but has a wife or has a partner, and so there was notes like things like that were similar, and then it completely caught me off guard when Johnny Cash is in A Complete Unknown, and then they are referencing Bob Dylan in Walk the Line. So kind of just like, it's just really interesting to see the two sides of the same story almost that James Mangold is getting to tell here. I'm gonna go with probably like a 3 on Walk the Line. The performances didn't quite do it for me. The story didn't quite do it. It just feels, to me, it does feel like a little bit of a step down from what A Complete Unknown is. It didn't quite capture me as much. And then we have The Vivitch, The Witch. Crazy to say, I have not seen this before. Because yeah, was in the wheelhouse of when I was kind of going to, or a little bit of seeing horror movies, so I knew this movie's existence. I just didn't see it, but I finally decided to go see it before Nosferatu, the next Eggers film. This one I'm gonna go with a 3.5, but this is another one too where I think an additional rewatch or two, I think I could find myself really falling in love with this. But for now, on the first watch, I thought it was okay. I'm gonna go with a 3.5, and then we closed out the year with Nosferatu, and this kind of caught me off guard. I was going in expecting it to be okay, and I think a lot of it is because of Eggers' whole filmography between The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman. I think they're all good, but I think I'm kind of lower on all of them than everyone else is. So I kind of was expecting. I just went in with kind of muted expectations. I think for Nosferatu, I just wasn't expecting it to blow me away like it is. With the way the Eggers films are with everyone else, but I loved Nosferatu. I'm going with a 4.5. Like, it genuinely was. I had a great time watching this. Literally just yesterday, the 31st, on New Year's Eve. I had a great time. Packed theater. Poor older couple next to me clearly didn't get the message that it was a horror movie, and so she was the wife was just not prepared for every jump scare. But yeah, I had a great time. We're going with a 4.5. And then you're going to notice there's one last kind of straggler down here. This is Interstellar. I didn't put it on the list because if you paid attention to my channel, you saw earlier I already watched Interstellar for my Christopher Nolan ranked, and I gave it a 4.5, and I put it as my sixth favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I watched it again in theaters for a couple weeks ago for the re-release, saw it in IMAX. I'm sorry that I ever had any sort of issues with this movie or had anything not even like negative. I gave it a 4.5. Like it's still great. I always knew it was a great film. This is a perfect that theatrical experience. This is where I think I'm okay letting the theatrical experience kind of change or shape a little bit the way that you see a movie because man, I loved this, seeing this on the big screen, seeing it in IMAX, hearing Hans Zimmer score with the massive speakers. And I will also say that this is another kind of an interesting thing with film for me and sharing cinema and sharing with your friends and family your experiences with films, because this is, I think I even said this in my Christopher Nolan ranked video, this is one of my best friends, this is his favorite movie of all time. He's said this for a long, this has always been his number one, this is his favorite movie ever. So I went and saw it with him in the re-release, and it was almost like the communal experience of sharing that movie, seeing your best friend's favorite movie with him on the big screen in IMAX, 10 years after it's been released, was just a great, great experience. And so, yeah, Interstellar, it bumps up. It's a 5 star. And it kind of sucks that it's within 6 months, the ranking video I have on my channel of Christopher Nolan, it's already kind of out of order now because I'm gonna slide Interstellar up to my third favorite Nolan probably. I'd have to think about because I think let me see because did I have Oppenheimer 3? Oh no, I think I have Oppenheimer 4, The Dark Knight 3. But yeah, so I think Interstellar probably slides in at number 3 for me now on terms of my favorite Christopher Nolan films. So I just had to put that in there because I technically am not going to count it as one of the movies I watched since the whole point of a movie a day for a whole year is it's supposed to be 366 individual movies when we get to the end. So that's why I didn't really double count it, but I still wanted to put it in here for you. All right, and now let's rank these. Man, this is going to be so hard with those 2.5, 3, 3.5s. Obviously, Pinocchio can stay by itself down there at the 1.5s. And then how do I rank these? There's so many in the 2.5s. There's so many from this year, so let me start with that. I'm going to move them down here to the back, and then we'll play around with it. But I just want to rank these ones at least, the ones from this year. I probably Mufasa, Maria, Night Bitch, Moana 2, probably like that. And then where did these four? So I guess A Christmas Carol is probably the best of these. And then Friday the 13th, Sonic. Let's do probably that. A Christmas Carol, Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, I think is the subtitle there. Sonic 2, Mufasa, Maria, Night Bitch, Moana 2, and Freebirds. The 3 stars, probably Walk the Line's probably the best here, and Suspiria. And then let's go with the OG Sonic, probably Y2K. I'm gonna go with The Lion King. That's probably the order there. Walk the Line, Suspiria, Sonic, Y2K, The Lion King, Polar Express, and Welcome to Marwen. Okay, and then the 3.5s. Let's do the same thing. Well, first thing I'm going to do is probably The Witch probably will go up to the top of this. But let's do the same thing. Let's rank all of this year ones. So we're probably going Baby Girl, Sonic 3, September 5, Carry On, Queer the Fire Inside. That's probably the order for this year's. So then let's slide Allied, probably here, and then Moana, probably there. It probably stays in front of all of these. So I think we're going to go with The Witch, Moana, The Fire Inside, Queer, Carry On, September 5, Sonic 3, Allied, and then Baby Girl. The 4s, we're going to go Complete Unknown over Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The 4.5s, I think it's too early to put Nosferatu ahead of any of these, so I'm going to go with The Shreks first, then Inglourious Bastards, then Nosferatu. Shrek vs. Shrek 2 is such an impossible like distinction for me. Like there, I because I part of me it's this weird thing. It's almost the same thing that I do with Toy Story and Toy Story 2, where I blend them as like one movie in my head. I think it's because they're these short 90-minute movies where it's just like it's so hard to like to put one above the other. I'm gonna go with Shrek, just the original. It's the one that when I think of Shrek, I think of the original first. Then we're gonna go Shrek 2, Inglourious Basterds, Nosferatu, and then Interstellar by itself up top in the 5 stars. So that's it. That is the ranking. Thank you so much for watching this video in general, as well as just this entire series. Just letting you know that this is pretty much the end for right now of this series. Did this for all of this year, so 12 different videos watching everything that I watched, or talking about everything I watched in the year. So this is a year down, 366 films, technically 367 if you count Interstellar, technically 370 if you count every time I watched The Town, because there's a video on my channel of when I watched The Town 3 times in 1 week because of Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics. If you want to watch that video, you can. But obviously there were some repeats in here. So really kind of probably was pushing 375, 380 films that I watched this year. But it was a lot of fun documenting this. This is the third straight year that I've done this, where I've watched a film a day. So for 3 years, so it's broken over 1,000 straight, But the thing is, and the reason why I'm kind of ending the series here for now, is because it's been 3 years, and all 3 years I say a movie a day just because that's the nice way to kind of wrap it up. But it's not like I'm watching a movie January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd. I might watch a movie January 1st, get busy on the 2nd, and so then on the 3rd I watch 2 movies to make up for it. Or it might be a thing where toward the end of the month I'm realizing I'm still 5 movies behind, and all of a sudden I'm having to cram and get a bunch of movies in. Or like this week, you saw the first 4 films that I talked about: Shrek's, Inglourious Bastard, and Freebirds. Those were all from like Thanksgiving, 4 or 5 days before the month even started, and I just pushed them all the way over here because I was ahead back then. So it's like it's not exactly a movie a day, and so I think I'm kind of ending the series here for now on that idea of I've proven it 3 years in a row that I can, in theory, do this part of it, but I haven't been able to accomplish the actual every single day making sure I log a movie. And I don't think I'm at a point, because that's not how life works. Like, we're busy, we have lives, and so haven't been able to do that next step yet. Someday I would like to do that. I would like to revisit this challenge years from now and see if I can't actually do that, of every single day hitting a movie. But I just kind of want to go into next year not pressuring myself or putting this on where it's like I have to every single month hit all of these movies and put out a video, because I think that kind of lessens the experience of watching a movie. You should be excited turning on your TV or going to the theater and watching a movie. It should never feel like it's this chore or homework that I have to do for a video. So for that reason, we're just going to go ahead and kind of end this series here for now. I will say that I am still going to document, and going into next year, I think there's a good chance that I still watch almost as many, 350 plus movies. I'm just not putting any sort of pressure on, like, I have to do this for this many days or whatever. But yeah, I'm still going to document it. I'm just not going to make that public or make any videos on it until the end of the year. I might kind of do like a recapping everything I watched type video or something. So again, thank you so much for watching this series. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts on any of these films are. If you saw any of these same films in the theater as I did, just let me know what your thoughts on these are. And also stay tuned, obviously, on the channel. You're seeing I'm kind of ramping up already. I've posted a couple videos already this year. There's a couple more videos already planned that are coming out next week. So this is the beginning of the year. Once we're getting into this kind of Oscar season, the ball really is going to be rolling. A lot of videos are coming, including my top 10 of 2024 and top 10 most anticipated of 2025. Those videos are coming very soon as well. So make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.